Hi, I'm Kayse.
And I'm Élan.
And this is Sinister, Strange, and Suspicious.
Our podcast is focused on everything strange, creepy, supernatural, and unsolved true crimes.
We decided to do a podcast because basically we are obsessed with true crime podcasts, and we kind of tore through all of the episodes of the shows that we love and thought, hey, why don't we do that?
All right. And it just seemed so, it fits for us, I think.
I think so too. So, I've been into true crime for a long time. My grandma was a huge true crime person, and I was always watching Unsolved Mysteries and America's Most Wanted and kind of just soaking up the creepy, shady side of life.
Yeah, I think that was such a big part of us growing up in the late 80s, early 90s. I mean, we had, like you said, Unsolved Mysteries. We had Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah.
Outer Limits. Yeah. There was so much, and we were like inundated with this supernatural and creepy things that happened that no one had solved.
Yeah, and like it was like the horror movie generation. You know?
Yeah.
We had all that exposure, so I mean, it's no wonder we're a bunch of weirdos.
Oh, right.
So, as a part of our introductory episode, we thought it would be kind of cool to tell you about a case or two that we both just kind of have always been fascinated with.
Mm-hmm. I've kind of come to think of these as our pet cases. Like, these are the ones that stuck out the most for us, that kind of inspired our little obsession with the weird.
Yeah, so sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yeah. So my standout case is Sweet Fanny Adams.
Isn't that like a phrase?
Yes. Okay. It's a phrase of British origin.
Oh, the British.
Right? They've got such a penchant for taking dark and weird things and kind of turning them into easily absorbed little snippets.
Yes, and I love the fact that they have truly elevated swearing to an art form.
Oh my gosh, right? Oh my gosh, they are amazing at it. Like, I aspire to be that great.
Same. If we are ever lucky enough to get some British listeners, I truly hope that they will help tutor us in the ways of swearing.
Oh, absolutely. I could use that additional instruction throughout my day.
Same.
Well, Sweet Fanny Adams, as we said, is a fairly common phrase, or it's been shortened to Sweet FA, or sometimes understood as sweet fuck all. And that kind of tickles the etymology nerd in me. But here we go with the actual background behind that phrase.
All right, I'm excited.
Yeah. Sweet Fanny Adams was a beautiful 8-year-old girl in Victorian England. She was pretty tall for her age, but she was murdered in such a barbaric and brutal way. It shook her community to its core.
I can only imagine. Everything that I've read about this town says it's like the idyllic small town.
Yes.
Like nothing bad ever happens there. Leave your doors unlocked. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows everybody.
I mean, and it's a little bitty town, and everyone knows each other. I mean, it's a real community.
Yeah.
And also Jane Austen's hometown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was pretty neat. So we're picturing this beautiful sunny Saturday summer day, and it's late August, 1867. Fanny's dad has some work to do, and he planned to play cricket later on that night. Her mother was busy doing all the things that stay-at-home moms did in the 1800s, which was literally everything.
All of the things.
She had a ton to do. So when Fanny, her little sister Lizzie, and their friend Mary all asked to go outside and play, her mom was like, yeah, get out, go play.
Get the fuck out.
So the kids quickly made their way to the flood meadows.
Ooh, the flood meadows.
I know, right? The flood meadows is basically just an area in the fields that was really popular for the kids to play in. It was, kind of an open area, community.
Right on. Get
centered.
out, go play with your friends.
Yeah, absolutely. Have at it. And when they get there, they noticed 29-year-old Frederick Baker.
Okay.
The girls kind of knew him in passing. He was new to the community. They'd seen him at church previously, and based on all their previous interactions, seemed like a fine, upstanding man.
Okay.
Just kind of member of the community.
Why are my spidey senses tingling?
Right? You just kind of get that vibe going into this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, according to some of the articles we read, the girls believed that Baker may have been drunk when he approached them at about, 1:30 in the afternoon.
So, let me get this straight. 29-year-old creeper by himself, drunk in the middle of the afternoon, approaches a bunch of little girls. Where could this go wrong?
Of course. Couldn't possibly go wrong.
Okay.
So the girls were really nervous because he worked as a solicitor's clerk and just seemed, by all accounts, pretty respectable guy.
It's always the respectable guys.
Right, quiet and respectable. Those are red flags. So Baker approached the girls and offered Minnie and Lizzie 3 halfpence to go get lost, basically.
Oh, don't do it, girls.
Run! Fanny was given a halfpenny to go with Baker to the Hollow, which apparently was kind of like a path or like a little road that led to a neighboring town.
Okay. I don't know about you, but there's no fucking way that even at 8 years old, I'm going with some drunk creeper to someplace called the Hollow.
Right? That's ominous and foreboding and just no.
Nah. Pass.
So Fanny definitely accepted the money, but then refused to go with him.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I get it.
I don't blame her.
No, not even a little. So then Baker became annoyed, snatched her up, and carried her off into a nearby hop field.
Ugh.
So, for you guys that don't know, hops grow very tall. It's a pretty high growing crop. So if a grown man with nefarious plans wanted to hide in plain sight with an 8-year-old girl,
that'd be like the perfect place to go.
Yeah, this is kind of the perfect setup, unfortunately.
Don't like.
No, not even a little. So Minnie and Lizzie, which they're young girls, and given the fact that this was Victorian England and a teeny little town, maybe weren't super well versed in stranger danger.
Oh, probably not. I mean, back in those times, it was kind of like a trust everybody.
Yeah, and this is, as far as they knew, just a friendly guy that lived in the neighborhood.
Okay.
So the girls kept playing. They stayed out and played together until about 5 p.m. and then decided to go home. The girls came across a neighbor, Mrs. Gardner, on their way home, and seeing as when she last saw them, all 3 of the girls were together, she asked where Fanny was. The girls told her what happened, and of course, major alarm bells started going off in her head.
Huge red flag.
Right? So she and Minnie went up to the hop field to investigate. There, they saw Frederick Baker.
Of course they did.
Alden's resident skis ball, making his way toward town. When they asked him what he did with Fanny, his response was simply, nothing. Likely story. He denied giving the girls money, denied any involvement with Fanny's disappearance. So when Mrs. Gardner threatened to call the police, Baker told her what she needed to do, basically.
Ugh.
Around 7 p.m., Fanny's family and the neighbors formed a search party. When they searched the hop garden, they were not prepared to find the scene of the most savage and brutal murder their town had ever seen.
I don't want to know, do I?
Yeah, you don't want to, but yeah,
But you want to.
You
yeah.
do. Just inside the garden, they immediately spotted a large pool of blood. Above it, they saw Fanny's severed head stuck on 2 poles.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
He put the little girl's head on a pike. Her body was mutilated and scattered around the field in pieces.
Why?
Friends and neighbors helped to retrieve as many pieces of Fanny's body as they could actually find.
That is horrifying.
It is.
Imagine being a small community, you're all close, you all know the little girl, and there you are having to pick up the pieces of her, literally.
That's so traumatic. Her remains were then taken to a local home to be examined and then reassembled.
I don't want that job.
No. After they collected as much of Fanny as they could, police went to the solicitor's office and arrested Baker on suspicion of murder. When he was searched, officers found 2 small knives in his possession. They also noticed small spots of blood on his shirt cuffs. When his home was searched, they found a journal. On the day of the murder, he had written at the top, "Killed a young girl. It was fine and hot."
Ew. All right, if you're going to be a murderer, which I do not condone or endorse, don't write about it in your journal.
You are leaving a paper trail.
That's just the dumbest.
I mean, basic rules of being a murderer or just committing a crime in general. Police also spoke with a young child who had seen Baker leaving the hop garden where Fanny was found. He claimed Baker was covered in blood and had stopped to wash himself in a nearby pond.
Gross.
During his trial, he denied having killed Fanny. His lawyers argued that violent outbursts ran in his family and that he was insane.
Well, I mean, in all likelihood, he probably was insane.
Yeah.
I don't think most normal people go around hacking little girls to bits.
No, but good to know after the fact, right?
Right.
Baker was ultimately found guilty and was hanged on Christmas Eve in front of 5,000 people.
Good.
Right. But you really have to think about this. This is Victorian England.
Mm-hmm.
There weren't any social media. We weren't able to put out a Twitter blast or anything else to notify people.
And 5,000 people still showed up. That
really speaks volumes on just how brutal and disturbing this murder actually is and was. We all know in Victorian times there was kind of a fixation on the dark and the gory and the creepy.
Right.
And I mean, even down to the penny dreadfuls you could pick up just for entertainment. So I feel like this probably captured the nation.
For sure.
Grabbed their attention. It was in the papers. People were coming from as far as London to be a part of this and to help. So the townspeople actually rallied behind Fanny's family.
Good.
They helped raise a boatload of money and bought Fanny a beautiful headstone to memorialize her, and it is still there to this day.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate that this murder happened, but at least the family had a solid support system in their community.
Their community stood behind them, and that is huge.
That is huge.
So this is my pet case because I had an elementary school teacher who, instead of, swearing or anything, would always say, "Sweet Fanny Adams."
That's terrible.
And as a kid, I asked my dad who Fanny Adams was because I had no clue. And of course, he brought me an encyclopedia because this was pre-Google.
Oh, I love it.
And we looked it up, and that's how I learned.
Oh, so your first true crime rabbit hole was visited through an encyclopedia.
Yes.
That is so cute and wholesome.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, I love it. So, what is your standout case?
Okay, so I don't really remember my first true crime rabbit hole because, like I said, I was always watching creepy stuff with my grandma. But this case that I'm going to tell you about it stands out to me for its creep factor.
Right.
And you'll see. So I'm going to tell you about Béla Kiss. So Béla Kiss was a young, handsome man that kind of seemingly had it all. He had a mustache that could only be described as a Franz Ferdinand mustache.
Ooh, baby.
Sexy. So he was the OG hipster.
Yep.
So in 1914, he was living the high life. Business was booming. He ran a very successful business as a tinsmith. He was well-liked by his neighbors in the town of Sincota, Hungary, which is now a part of Budapest. He also never seemed to lack for the company of attractive young women. Locals would later recall that there seemed to be a new woman every time that they saw him.
Wow.
Get it, guys? He would never introduce these women by name, and they were all from out of town, which is not shady at all.
No, it's not red flags at all.
Allegedly, not even his elderly housekeeper, Mrs. Jakobic, was privy to their identities. Which, I don't know, that just seems weird to me.
It does.
So, at the start of World War I, Mr. Kiss decided to enlist in the military, and he would ship out. While he was gone, he left his home in the care of Mrs. Jakobic. And in 1916, the kind of rumor mill started churning that he had died in the war. So his landlord decided, all right, well, if he's not coming back, I'm going to go out and get this property ready to rent again.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, times are hard. You need to make money how you can.
Absolutely.
Totally understandable. So he arrives at the property and immediately notices several large steel drums.
Oh, boy.
That's never good, guys.
No.
So it was assumed by friends and neighbors that Mr. Kiss had been storing fuel oil in preparation for rationing from the war. So the landlord was like, ooh, maybe I could make a little bonus cash. He decides to pry open one of the drums, which was soldered shut, mind you.
Oh, boy.
So as soon as he punctures the lid, he is immediately hit with the most putrid odor imaginable. The smell of death.
Ugh.
So obviously he freaked the fuck out, hightailed it out of there, and immediately called the police. So the police send Chief Detective Dr. Charles Nagy to investigate. Nagy and two other officers immediately opened up the drum. What do you think was inside?
Oh, no.
So inside, they find the well-preserved body of a beautiful brunette with long hair and a rope wrapped around her neck.
Oh, good Lord.
She was submerged in a brine of methanol, which, side note, for those of you who don't know, methanol is a type of wood alcohol that was common at the time. As detectives continued to search the property, they found more and more drums. Depending on which article you read, they eventually found between 24 and 30 women pickling in wood alcohol brine.
Okay. So, here's my thought.
Okay.
I do a bit of home pickling.
But not people, right?
No, not people.
Not people.
Mostly pickles. Sometimes peppers, I don't know. But I'm just thinking of how well preserved items are in even just vinegar, let alone
wood alcohol.
Wood alcohol.
Can you imagine? So you're just a dude, you're going about your day, you get this call for a murder investigation, you show up, you pop the top on these drums, and there are perfectly preserved women in there.
Oh, that is terrifying.
That is the stuff of nightmares.
It is. I can't stop. The visual that I have of this is absolutely staggering.
Yeah. Kind of makes my stomach clench just
Yes.
thinking about it.
Ugh.
So it gets worse.
Oh, God.
Each victim had been strangled, and some had 2 puncture wounds on their necks, indicating that they had been drained of their blood.
Oh, God.
Literally like a vampire would do.
Oh.
Ew.
And his first name is Béla.
Right.
Oh, God.
So you kind of get where I'm going.
Yeah.
So because of this, he was given the nickname the Vampire of Sincota.
Oh.
Super original, guys. Great work.
Super.
Great work. So are the pickles of 24 or more women fucked up enough for you?
I know it's going to get worse.
It definitely gets worse. So wait until you hear what they find inside his house. So they're thoroughly freaked out. The poor housekeeper, Mrs. Jakobic, was pretty much in shock. She denies any knowledge of the bodies or their identities, and she was adamant in her defense of Kiss, going so far as to describe a time when he tended to the injuries of one of the neighborhood dogs. So great, he's an animal lover. So, I mean, but
good to know.
Where'd all these bodies come from?
Right. And I'm a little concerned because she's a housekeeper, right?
Right.
And I assume she's there at least a few times a week.
At least. From everything that I read, it seemed like she was one of those housekeepers that would come like every day from like morning to sometime in the evening and then go home.
Okay.
So
you're telling me that this woman works in this house all day long.
Right.
And has never seen,
heard,
smelled
nothing.
Oh my gosh.
Super likely, right?
Yeah.
All right. So during their investigation, they cleared almost all of the rooms. But soon, Nagy discovered a room with a locked door. Mrs. Jakobic informed him that she did in fact have a key, but she was under very strict orders to never open the door under any circumstances. Red flag alert, guys.
Yeah.
So Detective Nagy was not having that. So he immediately has her open the door and promptly discovers basically the Batcave of murder.
Oh my God.
So picture this. Behind the locked door, you have a room with bookshelves that are literally filled like floor to ceiling with books on poisoning and strangulation.
Oh, wow.
Inside the desk, Nagy hit the motherlode of incriminating evidence. He discovered that Kiss had been corresponding with multitudes of women over the past decade. Basically, Kiss was the OG Nigerian Prince catfish. So this dude, get this, he would take out ads in newspapers underneath his own name and sometimes the name Hoffman. He would claim to be a lonely man in search of a wife, preferably one that was loaded because, obviously.
Well, yeah.
When such a woman would respond, as many did, he would apparently visit her in the city, lavish many gifts upon her, and generally romance her while probing her for information on whether or not she had close relatives nearby.
Wow.
Suspicious much?
So we're just whining and dining and then
Yeah.
a little bit of light espionage, I guess.
Yeah. So those who were more or less alone, he would continue to woo in letters, and then he would slowly begin to convince them to send him large sums of money. In some cases, they would send their entire savings. So that way, they were under the impression that this would be to start a new life together. One woman named Catherine Varga sold her profitable dressmaking business and was last seen leaving her house to join Kiss in Sincota.
Girl, no.
Seriously, ladies, love yourselves more. So the ladies loved Kiss. In total, he received an insane amount of marriage proposals, like 175 of them.
Wow.
Yeah. So he ends up going through these, whittling them down. He's obviously got standards that he needs to uphold. So he accepted something like 75 of these proposals. At least 20 of these women would end up in the drums in his backyard. So in his desk, he would keep packets from all 75 of these women with all of their correspondence. So Detective Nagy kind of used these packets to track down the women's hometowns, and he kind of worked with local police officers to try to identify as many of the women as he could. But the reports that I read, there was no specific number, so I'm not sure how many they were ultimately able to identify.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, back then, you know, there was no DNA, there was,
Right.
you know, the technology just wasn't there.
Right.
So it's kind of sad to think about.
It is, and they're operating based on the packets that he created, which I guess he has to keep his stories straight for each.
Yeah, that's a good point that I didn't even think about. I just thought he was like a creep, like enjoying looking back
like
on
it's a trophy.
Kinda, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, either way.
Yeah. It's probably a little of both.
So once police discover all of this and they realize they have a fucking dirtbag serial killer on their hands, they reached out to the military to inform them that Kiss should be arrested on murder charges. So a little while later, they received word that a soldier by the name of Béla Kiss was injured and hospitalized. They weren't 100% positive that this was the correct Béla Kiss because both names are actually really popular in that region. But they're pretty confident that this was him. So when Nagy arrived to arrest him, he discovered that the soldier had escaped by placing a dead man in his bed.
Oh my God.
Gross. So throughout the decades that followed, there were a bunch of sightings of Kiss. Especially once the news of his crimes kind of spread throughout the world slowly. So let's see. The first person reported seeing him in Budapest in 1919.
Okay.
Another person claimed that Kiss had enlisted with the French Foreign Legion under the name of Hoffman, which, if you remember earlier, we talked about how he used that pseudonym in some of his ads that he placed. So other sightings were reported in Romania and Turkey. Every time a sighting was investigated, the mysterious target would vanish into thin air. In 1932, a New York City detective with a famous memory for faces was 100% sure that he spotted Kiss exiting a subway station in Times Square, but he lost him in the crowd. He couldn't catch up to him fast enough. It's a bummer. The last reported investigation into a sighting on Kiss was in 1936. Some rumors had circulated that he was working as a janitor in a New York City apartment building, but when police stopped by to check it out, they found that once again he had disappeared without a trace.
Whoa.
So they never caught him.
That just brought the creep factor up to like 30.
Right, because who knows like where he went. Was he doing these things there too? And just never got caught? Or...
And it's just like he's gone halfway around the world at this point.
Right.
How many other murders did he potentially commit in that time frame in anywhere, basically?
Terrifying, right?
Oh my gosh. That's nuts.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
I know, it just kind of stuck with me.
Yeah.
It gives me goosebumps to think about.
I just can't stop picturing those steel drums.
I know. You're gonna text me later and be like, bitch, trying to go to sleep. I can't stop thinking about it.
Steel drums and long hair.
I could just picture it floating like in those images of like the mermaids.
That's what I was picturing too.
Yes, gross.
Oh, that's just
Have you ever read like the original descriptions of mermaids, like in The Little Mermaid?
Yes.
Like how they're like with the green skin.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's
they're not super pretty and dainty.
Yeah, and that's
I like the image of them with the green skin, and that does bring it. This does kind of call that to mind.
Exactly.
Oh yikes.
So what do you think? First podcast is officially in the books.
I am really looking forward to this. I cannot wait to see what this becomes.
I am so excited.
Yes, and it's just fun. Like this is what our conversations are like 90% of the time anyway.
I know, and now we can share the glorious personalities that we have with the rest of the world.
The world needs us.
They do need us. They don't know it yet, but they need us.
They do.
So you guys can check us out on Facebook, Sinister, Strange, and Suspicious, and on Instagram, Sinister, Strange, and Suspicious.
Yes.
And we will be back with another episode soon.
Mm-hmm.